All right, so we got the new motor picked up for the Camaro, the LMM, sitting on the stand behind us here. So we're gonna do a little tear down today, get that thing stripped right down to the block, get everything laid out nice. Anything I'm forgetting?
Thumbs down.
Thumbs up.
No, thumbs down.
Get out of here. All right. All right, let's get at her.
Let's do the cherry bomb.
Okay. So this engine is a core engine that I picked up for about $400. As you can see, it turns over fine, so we're not sure what's wrong with it. So let's get this thing tore apart and we're gonna find out what we got. First thing we're gonna do is pull the flywheel off, the rear cover, and the oil cooler and oil filter adapter. So we got the rear cover off. I'm gonna put the engine stand adapter plate on there. I bolted it right to the block. You gotta have the rear cover off and to be able to pull the crankshaft out of it. So rear cover's off. I bolted that to the back of the block. I had to cut a notch in my engine stand to clear the crank. And when you're putting the engine stand adapter on, center it on the block, not on the crank. It's so much easier to turn the engine over. Next thing we did is pull the exhaust manifolds, got the wiring out of the way, all the little brackets on the bottom of the engine. Then we get the oil pump pickup off. And then you can see here breaking the balancer loose. That thing's really tight too. Next thing to do is pull all the piston squirters out. Don't forget them. They're little jets that spray oil up under the bottom of the pistons. There's one for every piston, so get all those out. And then next thing we do after that is we're gonna pull the front cover off. All right, front cover's off. Next thing to do is the reluctor wheel and the oil pump. The oil pump nut on that gear is left-hand thread. Don't forget that, otherwise you'll be fighting with it for a long time. The reluctor wheel, you just give her some taps with a punch and a hammer. It slides straight off the front of the crank. And then the oil pump comes off. Get the engine back up to the upside. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna pull all the valve covers off, start getting the top end off this motor. As you can see, a lot of this motor was already taken apart by the previous owner. He was gonna use it in the project and didn't go through with it. So the oil pump, turbo, CP3 pump, water pump, a bunch of little things like that were already removed, which saved us a bunch of time. When you're doing the valve cover bolts, it's a number 5 Allen. Make sure you got that socket seated really good and break them all loose with a ratchet before you go with an impact, because those are really easy to strip, and I've stripped out lots, and I've worked on lots of vehicles where those were stripped out, and that is a real pain, especially when it's still installed in the truck. You do not want to fight with those. You can see me at the back here right now. 2 of the injector hold down bolts were broke off and corroded to the valve cover, so they seized to the valve cover. The back one here I got off successfully, but the other side we're gonna skip this because I ended up breaking the cover and it is not a fun time. So let's just forget about this other side and I'll have to find a used valve cover for this motor. Or first of all, I took the intake manifolds off. Now we're breaking all the rockers loose, the rocker rails. So we get the rocker rails off of there, push rods out. Jacob's practicing his sword fighting skills, so we had to stay clear of that. And then you take all your little bridges off of the valves with the rockers, and then we move on to breaking the head bolts loose. The head bolts are not reusable, so chuck them in the garbage. You don't need them. And if you pull your head off and you look in your cylinder, you see this, don't worry, totally normal. That top part of the cylinder is heat treated, and due to normal combustion, it just develops those hot spots like that. So don't worry about it, carry on. Let's get this thing flipped over and start pulling the pistons out. These are cracked cap correct connecting rods, which means the connecting rods to split them are actually literally split, broken apart. So So when you're using your block of wood to tap the pistons down, don't put it on the end of the cap. Those are very critical to not get damaged. And after you pull your piston out, I immediately like to clean it off and bolt the cap back onto the connecting rod, so you do not damage that cracked cap configuration. So I'll break all the main caps loose. Don't forget they're cross bolted from the side. And then we're gonna nice and gently wiggle all the main caps out of there so we can get the crankshaft out of this thing. And right here is about where I can see why this engine was pulled, and it's not fun. The crankshaft is broken. So broke on the #1 throw. If you do some research, that's where they always break. They say high RPM or a bad balancer will do this. There's a few ways to remedy this: alternate fire camshafts, balanced rotating assemblies, better balancers. I'm not sure what we're gonna do, but we're gonna have to find a crankshaft or something. So here I'm just taking the lifter retainers out. And to get the cam out, you're gonna pull this little shield off the front. I believe that's for the sensor. Then there's 2 bolts. You crack those loose with a ratchet. And then Jacob's gonna hit them out with the drill. And just like that, we got our cam out and we're down to a bare block, right on. So I'm just kind of inspecting things. Cylinder wear looks pretty good in this engine. I don't know the kilometers on it, but cam bearings look okay. Looks like a good block to build off of. I don't know what kind of money I'm gonna spend on this block, we'll see. One other unfortunate thing is the camshaft is covered in rust. So I don't know, maybe we can polish this out. We'll see, but cam and crank in this thing are done. What do you figure?
It's garbage.
It is garbage. So we are gonna have to do a little regroup. What do you think? We can weld that crank back together?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll weld it back together, I guess, since we gotta spend all our money on a cam now.
Oh yeah.
Whatever.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I guess we'll figure it out. All right, so I got it figured. It was pretty easy. Girlfriend's away, so all I had to do is go to the bank, take out a big old stack of cash, drive 6 hours, and buy this. This here is an LML. It is supposed to have just a head gasket blown, so I'm hoping that's all that's wrong with it. Yeah, so hopefully it has a good crank and a cam. I'm sure it will. I can just throw a head gasket in this thing. That other motor is going to cost at least $1,300 to freshen up, plus the cost of a crank and cost of polishing a cam, and that was with minimal block work. This year I bought for less than that, and I should be able to throw a head gasket in it. I got a set of ARP head studs for it already. So yeah, I'm going to get this thing unwrapped. I'm going to get it in the garage. I'm probably going to go mock it up in the car today, but that's going to be for the next video. So yeah, next video I'm going to be doing modifying of the subframe to get rid of those subframe spacers like we talked about before, and getting this here engine mocked up. So let's get at her, and I'll catch you in the next one.